Hey, how's it going YouTube? This is Devin with Jurassic Magic, and in today's video I'm going to be discussing another dragon that is from the Tarkir Dragonstorm, and I gotta say this set is looking to be amazing. I already previously talked about Urania of the Unwritten. Definitely go check that video out if you haven't checked it out yourself. But in this video today I will be discussing another spirit dragon that is from the set, and that's Teval, Arbiter of Virtue. This is from the main standard set, not from the Commander Precon like the previous one, and this one I gotta say is very exciting. I don't want to waste any time. Let's discuss what it does. For 2 black, green, and a blue, is a legendary creature spirit dragon with flying and lifelink. You're definitely going to need that lifelink with the next couple abilities because spells you cast have delve, and whenever you cast a spell you lose life equal to its mana value, and it does have a 6/6 body. So yeah, delve is a very broken mechanic, infamous in Magic the Gathering, known to break a lot of different formats, but I think this is pretty safe. I don't know if this is going to be either very busted or very safe, and not a lot of people are going to brew around it because of the hefty cost of whenever you cast a spell you lose life equal to this mana value, and that's just any spell you're casting, even if you're not delving. I will say though, Teval does have lifelink, and 6 power is not too shabby. You swing in, gain 6 life, and most likely you're going to lose all that and maybe even more delving more into spells. There's a lot of cool ways to brew around this commander, and I think the best way, of course, is by going into a graveyard strategy, so that way the spells that you're casting can be cheaper. I also wanted to go into an X spell strategy too, because you can kind of choose the amount of cards you want to exile in the graveyard and to pay into the X ability. And another fun thing to consider is Voltron. We want to get as much life as we can to cast more spells. We want to boost the power of Teval, so that way we're not losing too much life, we're kind of balancing it out. So now that I mentioned those, let's get it started. Let's talk about Teval and how to build around it. So first things first, let's talk about the graveyard strategy. There's so much different options that you could choose from. Again, I feel like I'm mentioning this every single video, but Ripples of Undeath is probably one of my favorite cards that I've been using in a lot of different decks. It's pretty cheap and efficient for 2 mana. You're milling 3 cards at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase. And of course, if you want to choose a specific card to be in your hand, all you have to do is pay 1 mana and pay 3 life. This is just a consistent way we could put cards into our graveyard so that we could delve with them. Another auto include in most of my decks that I focused on putting cards into the graveyard with is Palantir of Orthanc. This is a really good engine that'll give your opponents a tough choice of either giving you a card draw or milling cards, and if you have a lot of high CMC cards that you're putting into your graveyard, you're going to make your opponents lose that much life. It all really depends on how much influence counters you do have on Palantir of Orthanc. This is one incredible card that I keep slotting in a lot of decks, and this one is another one that I feel like is perfect for it too, because the more influence counters you have, the more you're going to be milling, but that's all based off your opponent's choice. Sometimes they'll definitely just give you the card draw because they don't want to get any more damage dealt to them, and honestly, a card draw is not even bad either. We want to be casting spells along with putting cards into our graveyard. We need to have cards on our hand in order to do so. Either way, it's going to be a win-win for us. Another card that's similar to Palantir is Out of the Tombs. This one can be pretty crazy and pretty nuts in this deck. At the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 Eon counters on Out of the Tombs, then mill cards equal to the number of Eon counters on it. It has another ability. If you draw a card while your library has no cards in it, instead return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. If you can't, you lose the game. This can be incredibly risky. I think it can be worth it though, because you're going to be milling more and more cards, and then when you mill more and more cards, you can make your spells that you're casting cheaper now. But it's definitely a clock on your game, because if you don't have any cards in your library anymore, most likely you're not going to have any cards in your graveyard if you're exiling a bunch of cards with delve. This can be a high risk, high reward type of card. Also, something to consider is great or good, and this one is actually a pretty decent example of something that we want to utilize with our commander, because you can sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, then discard 3 cards. I like this personally because if we want to cast a lot of spells and our commander is out on the battlefield and we're out low life, we want to make sure we can remove the commander and cast those spells without worrying about losing life. And not only that, we can draw 6 cards and discard 3 cards. We're filling up our graveyard all the while drawing some cards. So it's definitely something you may want to consider. Another option that I thought about is Disciple of Bolas or Disciple of Freylis, where you enter the battlefield with him, you draw cards and gain life equal to the amount of power of Teval, essentially, where you draw 6 cards, gain 6 life. The same can be applied for Altar of the Wretched, but instead of gaining life, you draw X cards, then mill X cards or exercise creature's power, so you're drawing 6 cards and also milling 6 cards. It does have a flip side, but we're mainly using it for that front side, but it can be pretty useful. So of course there's a ton of other mill options and also ways we could sacrifice our commander so that we don't lose too much life, but now I wanted to focus on X spells because I feel like X spells are going to be very good with our commander, because if we have say 8 or 9 9 cards in our graveyard and we have an X spell, we could pay 8 or 9 into the X ability depending on how much life we have and gain a ton of value. First of all, I gotta say the classic Villainous Wealth. It's a Sultai staple. Target opponent exiles the top X cards of their library. You may cast any number of spells with mana value X or less from among them without paying their mana costs. This can be incredibly huge for our deck, but I will say you are casting the spells, and technically with Teval, all those spells you're casting for free, they're still going to count the mana cost, so you definitely want to watch out for that. Make sure you have that sacrifice outlet. Another card I would suggest is Torment of Hailfire, and look, I know not a lot of people like it, and I completely understand, but this can be a very viable win con. Repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices an online permanent or discards a card. So this could really hose the table, especially if you pay like 8 or 9. Makes people discard cards, sacrifice non-online permanents, or lose 3 life. It is definitely a mean card, and if you want to put it in your deck, I'm just warning you, people might be salty about it, but I would say the best X spell that you could utilize in the deck would be Exsanguinate, mainly because each opponent loses X life, you gain life equal to the life lost this way. So let's just say you paid 10 into the X ability, you delved into it so it's only really 2 black mana, you're going to be losing 12 life. However, on the flip side, your opponents are going to lose 10 life, and you're going to gain 30 life on top of that, and you want to have as much life gain as you can, so that way you can cast more and more spells. So of course there are some great X spells. Those are just some ones I wanted to mention. Of course there is X spells, but there's also big creatures that you could essentially cast for free or almost free. Honestly, any colorless creature is going to be quite insane with this commander. You could throw in some Eldrazi, you could throw in some Blightsteel Colossuses, some big giant artifact creatures. It is kind of scary the amount of potential that you can throw in this deck, but I would say by far the best creature that you could throw in this deck, and I seriously mean this is easily the best one, is Villous Broker of Blood. Whenever you lose life, draw that many cards. This is easily an auto include if I've ever seen one, especially for this type of commander, because when you're casting spells you are losing life, and especially if they're big giant spells, you gotta turn that life loss into card draw as well. And plus this can be reduced all just to 3 black mana, so it's gonna be very cheap to cast. You're gonna lose 8 life in the process, but not only that, when you cast more spells into the future, the more life you're gonna lose, the more card draw you're gonna gain. This is absolutely insane in the deck. But now I did want to shift away from the degenerate stuff. I wanted to focus on Voltron. I do believe that it could be a fun, interesting strategy, mainly because you get to reduce all the colorless spells you cast off of just delving, because most equipment is going to be colorless. And not only that, I know Voltron is going to be more of a cheeky strategy with this commander. I know it's not the most optimal way of building it, because obviously focusing on the graveyard and using your life as a resource can go into pretty big storm strategies, but I wanted to focus on it more as a casual setting with Voltron, and there's a ton of options that you could choose from. I think a really neat option with this commander is Mithril Coat, because technically it can be free. If you're all tapped out, everybody expects you not to have a spell that you could cast, and if you go to combat, you swing in with your commander. Somebody could try to remove it with a destroy spell. However, if you flash in Mithril Coat, you could auto equip it for free, and you could use its delve ability where you only pay by exiling 3 cards, and of course you're going to be losing 3 life, but you'd rather keep your commander. But in that way, your commander will gain indestructible. Hammer of Nazan is another way we could give our commander indestructible, all the while giving it +2/+0 so that it's an 8/6, so we're swinging for more lifelink, and so that we could cast more and more spells. Another fantastic option would be Excalibur's Sword of Eden. It already has a cost reduction based off the number of historic permanents you control, but not only that, equipped creature gets +10/+0 and has vigilance, so our commander will be a 16/6. But a bigger downside of this, of course, it does cost 12 mana. You're going to be losing 12 life, and that's a pretty steep cost, but if you swing in with your commander, you're just going to gain it all right back. Another excellent choice would be Power Fist. I think this is going to be incredible with Teval, because this is really going to scale with the game. You equip it to your commander, equipped creature has trample, and gets whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, put that many 1/1 counters on it. So at base, if we just slap this on with our commander, we swing in with it, it's going to put 6 1/1 counters on it, and then the next turn you swing in with it, you're going to put 12 1/1 counters on it. And honestly, that's not even counting the amount of equipment we do already have on it. So yeah, this could be a really insane option, and that's what I do like about equipment. Most of them are buffing up our commander so that way we gain more life, and a good 99% of them are essentially free, because if we delve with them and if they are colorless, we could essentially just cast them for free. We're going to be losing life in the process, but that's not a big downside, especially if we swing with our commander. So either way, it's going to be a win-win for us. I know it's not going to be the most optimal strategy with Teval, so that's just more of a fun way to build around it, but I would love to hear your thoughts. How would you build around Teval Arbiter of Virtue? There's so many different ways, because this is a very open-ended commander, and that's why you probably already noticed this video is kind of all over the place. I'm talking about all sorts of different strategies, and that's just kind of showing you how open-ended this commander can be. So on the way out, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. channel. And with that out of the way, thank you for stomping by.